The champagne had lost its sparkle years ago, but Marcus Chen still went through the motions. Standing on the balcony of his penthouse overlooking Manhattan, the 62-year-old real estate mogul watched the city lights blur through tears he refused to shed. 23 years. 23 years since that terrible day at the county fair, when his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, vanished into a crowd and never came back. The police had searched. Private investigators had searched. He had spent millions, called in every favor, followed every lead that went nowhere. His wife, Sarah, hadn't survived the grief, not literally, but in every way that mattered. She'd left him 5 years after Lily disappeared, a ghost married to a ghost. Now Marcus had everything money could buy and nothing that money couldn't. The construction site was the last place Marcus wanted to be on a cold November morning. His assistant had insisted he make an appearance at the new community center project, a rare philanthropic venture his board had pushed him into for tax purposes. Marcus didn't care about the reasons anymore. He'd built an empire of glass and steel, monuments to his own emptiness. But lately he'd been thinking about legacy. What would remain of Marcus Chen when he was gone? Buildings with his name on them that no one would remember? A fortune divided among distant cousins who barely knew him? He pulled up to the site in his Mercedes, irritation already mounting. The place was chaos. Workers everywhere, the sound of power tools cutting through the morning air, trucks backing up with warning beeps. His project manager, a nervous young man named Tom, rushed over with a hard hat and clipboard. "Mr. Chen, thank you for coming. We're right on schedule, and I thought you'd like to see—" Marcus wasn't listening. His eyes had locked onto a figure across the lot. A young woman in worn work boots and a neon safety vest was directing a delivery truck, her movements confident and precise. But it wasn't her competence that made Marcus's heart stop. It was her face, the shape of her jaw, the way she tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear, that particular tilt of her head when she concentrated. Marcus felt the world tilt beneath his feet. "Who is that?" His voice came out strangled. Tom followed his gaze. "Oh, that's Emma Rodriguez. She's one of our site coordinators. Fantastic worker, really knows her stuff. Started as a general laborer 3 years ago and worked her way up. Why do you, Mr. Chen? Are you okay?" Marcus couldn't answer. He was moving toward her before he made the conscious decision to do so, his expensive shoes crunching on gravel and debris. The woman looked up as he approached, her expression shifting from focus to polite confusion. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. She had Lily's eyes, that particular shade of brown with flecks of gold. The same small scar through her left eyebrow. Marcus remembered that scar. Lily had gotten it at age 4, climbing a tree she'd been told not to climb. "Can I help you, sir?" Emma asked, her voice professional but wary. She probably thought he was just another rich guy checking up on his investment. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. What could he possibly say? After 23 years of searching, of dead ends and false hopes, could this really be his daughter? Or was he finally losing his mind, seeing what he desperately wanted to see? I'm sorry, he managed. You remind me of someone." Emma's expression softened slightly. "No problem. You must be Mr. Chen. Tom said you'd be visiting today." She extended a hand. "Emma Rodriguez. Rodriguez. Not Chen." Marcus shook her hand, noting calluses that spoke of hard work, and felt a crack open in his chest. This young woman, who looked so heartbreakingly like his lost Lily, had lived a completely different life than the one his daughter should have had. While he'd built his empire, she'd been laying foundations and framing walls. Over the next few weeks, Marcus found reasons to visit the construction site with increasing frequency. He told himself he was just taking a more active interest in the project, but he knew the truth. He needed to be near Emma, to watch the way she moved, to catalog every similarity and every difference from the little girl he'd lost. He learned that Emma was 29 years old, the right age, that she'd grown up in foster care after being found wandering alone at a state park when she was 6, the right circumstances, that she had no memory of her life before that day, the right, terrible blank space where his daughter's early years should have been. But he also learned that Emma Rodriguez was her own person. Built from years of struggle he knew nothing about. She'd bounced between 7 foster homes before aging out of the system at 18. She'd put herself through community college while working 2 jobs. She'd earned every certification, every promotion through sheer determination. She was tough, independent, and deeply suspicious of anything that came too easily. Marcus wanted to tell her everything, to pull her into his arms and never let go, but something held him back. Fear, maybe. Fear that the DNA test he'd already secretly arranged would come back negative. Fear that even if it came back positive, this strong young woman who'd built herself from nothing wouldn't want anything to do with the father who'd lost her. The breakthrough came on a particularly cold December afternoon. Marcus was reviewing plans in the site trailer when he heard shouting outside. He rushed out to find Emma standing between 2 workers who were about to come to blows, her voice cutting through their anger with authority. "I don't care who said what," she was saying. "We're a team here, and teams don't fall apart over stupid misunderstandings. Rodriguez, shake Johnson's hand. Johnson, shake Rodriguez's hand. And both of you get back to work before I fire you both and do your jobs myself." The men, both larger than Emma, complied sheepishly. As they dispersed, Emma turned and caught Marcus watching her. Something in his expression made her walk over. "Everything okay, Mr. Chen?" "You handled that well," he said. "You're a natural leader," Emma shrugged. "Learned young that you have to stand up for yourself and for others. Nobody else is going to do it for you. Is that what foster care taught you?" Her eyes sharpened. "You've been asking about me." "I have." Marcus made a decision. "Emma, could we talk? Somewhere private?" They ended up at a small diner 3 blocks away, sitting across from each other in a cracked vinyl booth. Marcus ordered coffee he wouldn't drink and watched Emma add 4 sugars to hers. Exactly the way Lily used to drink the hot chocolate he'd make her on cold mornings. "I need to tell you something," he began, "and I need you to hear me out before you decide I'm crazy." Emma's expression was guarded, but she nodded. Marcus told her everything. About Lily, about the county fair, about 23 years of searching, about the moment he'd seen Emma and felt recognition hit him like a physical blow, about the private investigator he'd hired to research her background, and yes, about the DNA test he'd arranged using a coffee cup she'd discarded. He expected anger, accusations of stalking, perhaps horror at his intrusion into her life. Instead, Emma sat very still, her coffee growing cold between her hands. "I have dreams," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Fragments, really. A man pushing me on a swing. A woman singing in a language I don't understand. The smell of jasmine. I always thought they were just things my mind made up to fill the empty spaces." "Your mother sang to you in Mandarin," Marcus said, his throat tight. "And our backyard had a jasmine tree." "You love that swing!" Emma looked up at him, and Marcus saw tears tracking down her face. "The DNA test. When will you have the results?" "Tomorrow." "But Emma, I need you to know. Even if it comes back negative, even if you're not her, I'd still like to know you. You remind me of who Lily might have become. Strong, brave, kind, despite everything the world threw at you." Emma laughed, a sound caught between tears and disbelief. "And if I am her? If I am Lily? What then, Mr. Chen? Do I suddenly become the daughter of a millionaire? Do I move into your penthouse and learn which fork to use? I've built a life, built myself without any help. I don't know how to be someone's lost princess." "Then don't be," Marcus said simply. "Be exactly who you are. Be Emma Rodriguez, the woman who worked her way up from nothing. The woman who breaks up fights and runs construction sites and drinks terrible coffee with too much sugar. But maybe also be someone who has a father who loves her, who's always loved her even when he didn't know where she was." The next day, Marcus's hands shook as he opened the envelope from the testing lab. The words blurred together until he focused on the only ones that mattered. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. He called Emma immediately. She answered on the first ring as if she'd been waiting by the phone. "It's you," he said. "Lily, it's you." There was silence on the other end, then a sound that broke Marcus's heart and healed it simultaneously. His daughter, crying. They met at the construction site on neutral ground. Emma, Lily, whoever she was now, was waiting by the half-finished community center. Marcus got out of his car slowly, giving her space. giving her control. "I don't know how to do this," she said when he reached her. "I don't know how to be your daughter." "I don't know how to be your father," Marcus admitted. "Not to the person you are now. I only knew how to be father to a 6-year-old who loved butterflies and hated broccoli and wanted to be an astronaut." Emma smiled through her tears. "I still hate broccoli." That's a start. They stood there in the cold, two people connected by blood and loss and 23 years of separate pain. Then Emma did something that took more courage than anything she'd done in her hard-fought life. She took a step forward and let Marcus hug her. He was careful, tentative, as if she might break or disappear again. But she was solid and real, and she smelled like sawdust and possibility. "I want to take this slow," she said into his shoulder. "I want to get to know you, the real you, not just the rich guy who owns half of Manhattan. And I want you to know me, not who you wish I'd become." "I already know you," Marcus said. "I've been watching you lead, watching you care about people, watching you build things. You're exactly who I'd hoped you'd be. You're better." Over the following months, they built a relationship as carefully as Emma built buildings, with strong foundations, patience, and attention to detail. Marcus learned about Emma's foster families, both the cruel ones and the few kind ones. He learned about her community college professors who'd seen her potential. He learned about her dream of starting her own construction company, focusing on affordable housing. Emma learned about her mother, about the grief that had broken Sarah Chin, about the guilt Marcus had carried for 23 years. She learned about her early childhood, piecing together memories with his stories. She learned that wealth wasn't what she'd imagined, that her father's penthouse was a beautiful prison he'd built to contain his pain. 6 months after that first DNA test, Marcus made an announcement at the community center's opening ceremony. The building was complete, gleaming with possibility, and Emma stood beside him on the stage. "This center," Marcus said to the gathered crowd, "was supposed to be a tax write-off, a meaningless gesture from a man who'd forgotten how to care about anything. But it became something else entirely. It became the place where I found what I'd lost, where I remembered what really matters." He turned to Emma, who looked uncomfortable in a dress but had agreed to wear it for the occasion. "I'm announcing today that the Chen Foundation will be redirecting its focus. We will be investing in affordable housing, in programs for foster children, in construction training programs for at-risk youth. And leading these initiatives will be Emma Rodriguez, who happens to be my daughter Lily, and who is far smarter and more capable than I ever was." The crowd erupted in applause, but Marcus only cared about the look on Emma's face. Surprise, fear, and something like hope. "You're giving me a job?" she asked later, as they walked through the center's empty halls. "I'm giving you a purpose," Marcus corrected, "and the resources to fulfill it. You know what it's like to have nothing. You know what people like you need. I have money. Together, we can actually make a difference." Emma stopped walking and turned to face him. "You know I'm still going to call you Marcus sometimes, right? When you're being annoying or too controlling or treating me like I'm 6. Marcus smiled. "And you know I'm going to embarrass you by crying at inappropriate moments and telling everyone you're my daughter?" "God, you're already embarrassing." But Emma was smiling too. They stood there in the building they'd both, in their own ways, helped create, and Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in 23 years. He felt complete. The community center became the first of many. The Chen Rodriguez Foundation, as they eventually named it, transformed lives across the city. But more importantly, it transformed 2 lives that had been frozen in grief and survival. Marcus learned that his daughter was even more stubborn than he was, that she had a wicked sense of humor, and that she cried at animal videos but stayed composed during crisis. Emma learned that her father was secretly funny, terrible at cooking, and would show up at her apartment with food whenever he thought she wasn't eating enough. 23 years after losing his daughter at a county fair, Marcus Chen found her on a construction site. But what he really found was a second chance, not to reclaim the past, but to build a better future. Together, they built more than buildings. They built a family, slowly and carefully, on a foundation of truth and acceptance and love. And every morning, as Marcus made coffee in his penthouse that no longer felt like a prison, He thanked whatever force had brought him to that construction site. Sometimes what we lose finds its way back to us, not as we remember it, but as something stronger, forged in the fire of survival and more precious for the journey.